So 7.4, translations and vectors. So remember we talked about how we would write things that have been shifted and how we show like where the image is based on the pre-image with like normal like coordinate notation, and then we also showed vector notation, which is to put it in like the brackets that look like that. So number 18, it is, let's see. It looks like this, and it says to name the vector and write its component form. So we always name in the direction that the arrow is going. And so the name of this one would be LK, and we put an arrow, like a half arrow over top of it, showing the direction that it's going. And then its component form is how many, like it's going this way obviously, so how many spaces left or right, and then up or down that it's going. So we go left 1, 2, 3, 4, so that means -4. And then we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and so it's -4, -4. But it's in the, I'm going to call them alligator mouths. And that's all you're doing on those ones like that. The next ones for 25 through 30 say to consider the translation defined by the coordinate notation xy to x plus 12, y minus 7. Oh, thank you. And so then for 26, it says, what is the image of -1, -2? So we're going to take these numbers. So this is the original over here, and they're telling us to get to the, from the pre-image to the image, we're adding 12 to the x value, and we're subtracting 7 from the y value.
11, -9.
Yep, so we would have -1 plus 12, and then -2 minus 7, technically, and then 11 and -9.
Do you want us to write the -1 plus 12?
I mean, I would recommend it for the sake of getting points if you show your work, because if you write the wrong answer and there's no work, then obviously you lose all the points. But if you have some work shown, then no. If you're really confident, I mean, that's fine. But I would recommend that you at least show this step. So this one, we were given the pre-image like coordinates, and then they wanted us to do the image. The next one is opposite. 28, it says, what is the pre-image of 0, -6? So what I would do is I would set each of these pieces equal to this value. So I would do like x plus 12 equals 0, and then I would do y minus 7 equals -6. And then I would solve them down. So we subtract 12. So x equals -12. And then over here add 7. So y equals 1. So then our answer would be -12, +1. Now, the other thing you can do is just change the sign. So so it was x plus 12 and y minus 7. You could have just said x minus 12 and y plus 7, and that would have done the same thing for you, but this is like technically the work for it. $30. What is the pre-image of negative 5.5, negative 5.5? So again, the other option, I'm just going to show the work on this one a little bit differently, is instead when I do the stuff in here, I can say, well, this is x plus 12, but I'm going the other way for the pre-image, so I can say negative 5.5 minus 12. And then the other one was y minus 7, so I could say negative 5.5 plus 7. So again, I'm changing the signs because I'm working backwards. I'm going from the image to the pre-image, and I could do it this way. So this would be negative 17.5 and positive 1.5, like that. So two different ways in 28 and 30 to do the same thing. Either way is fine, but I would recommend again that you show work, especially on those ones where you're going backwards since it's the opposite sign. Let's see. All right. On these ones, you don't have to have graph paper, but if you don't, just make sure you're drawing your little markings on here. These say to copy figure PQRS and draw its image after the translation. So the pre-image is P is at negative 1, 1. So I'm going to go ahead and write these over here. And then Q is at 2, 4. R is at 6, 3. And then S is at 2, negative 1. So if you don't have graph paper, again, that doesn't matter. You just need to put little tick marks on your on there to show like where your points are going. I'm not gonna like get a thing out and measure it or anything. So 34 says we're going from xy to x minus 1, y minus 3. I didn't give enough. Hold on. I need a little more space. Okay, there we go. So we're going to take each point and we're going to put it on here for the image. Okay, so that means mathematically I'm going to find them all and then we'll plot them over here. So that means each x value I'm going to subtract 1, and then each y value I'm subtracting 3. So P prime would be negative 1 minus 1, so that's negative 2. Y is 1 minus 3, which would be negative 2. Q prime would be 2 minus 1, which is 1. And then 4 minus 3, which is 1. R prime, 6 minus 1 is 5. And then 3 minus 3 is 0. And then for S prime, 2 minus 1 is 1. And then negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. So then now I can come over here and plot these points for my image. So I'm going to do it in a different color. If you don't have a different color, you're just doing pencil, that's fine. Just make sure as you put your letters on there that you put the primes on there so that I can see where they go. So that means that P prime is at negative 2, negative 2. So negative 2, negative 2, so that's down here. Q prime is at 1, 1. So that's here. R prime is at 5, 0. So that's here. And then S prime is 1, negative 4. So that's down here. Now the other way I could have done this if I didn't want to write out what all the points were at first is I could have just said, okay, well I know every X value I'm going left 1 and Y values I'm going down 3. I could have come up here, I'm going to do it with Q, and so I could have said, okay, well it's going left 1, so that's over here, down 3, 1, 2, 3, and there's my point. So that's kind of a way you can go back and check too once you've graphed them, or if you've done this stuff over here, you can kind of go back and like actually visually put it on there. So if you're more visual, you can do it that way. Obviously it says you have to plot the points. It didn't technically ask for this. But this is just like extra help into practice mathematically.
We can use a different graph to find the to draw the image, right?
No, it should be on the same one. All right, something similar here with a triangle. Instead, they're going to give us the triangle initially, and then they're giving it to us in vector form for moving it. So we have my triangle. A is at 1, 4. B is at 6, 1. I guess I should write these over here, it'd probably be helpful. Again, they're not asking us to write the points, but I just think it's helpful, so I'm doing it. And then C is at 3, 0. So it looks like that. So number 40 says, or my vector form is 3, negative 2. So this is no different than the form that I had up here of saying that we're going from xy to x plus 3, y minus 2. Okay, so it's just a different way to write the same thing that we had before. If I wanted to go back up here and write this one in vector form instead, my vector form would just be negative 1, negative 3. Okay, so just so that you see the two different forms. So they want me to take every point and they want me to translate it. I don't have to tell them where all the points are. I will write them over here, but I'm just going to translate them over. So this says I go right 3, down 2. So for A, I go right 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2. So that's A prime. Then for B, write 1, 2, 3, down 2, 1, 2. Here's B prime. And then C, write 1, 2, 3, down 1, 2. And then there is my new triangle that way. So mathematically, obviously, once if you've translated it first, you could just find what the points are. But if you wanted to confirm it mathematically, we could come over here and say A prime. I have 1 plus 3 is 4. And then 4 minus 2 is 2. And so this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So like that makes sense there. For B, at 6, 1, B prime, we take 6 plus 3, and so that is 9, and then 1 minus 2 is -1. So again, I could do 9, -1, and I would see that that's where that point is. And then lastly, for C, we have 3 plus 3, so that would be 6. And then 0 minus 2, -2. So 6, -2. So just again, it didn't ask for this, but I'm just doing it so that you get extra practice mathematically because I don't have a ton of examples in this section. So just trying to make sure that we see what's going on. Because looking at the quiz review that goes with all of this stuff, we're still a couple sections away from a quiz. Probably looking at Monday, maybe Tuesday for a quiz. I think I currently have Monday's date up there, but it could be Tuesday. But looking at the quiz review for this stuff, it's asking you, if I remember correctly, I looked at it on Friday, to basically show how the vertices get translated with something like this. So it'll give you the initial graph, and then it tells you what the points are, or you have to find the points, and then it asks you with this information to like show where the other image is. So this type of problem is what you need to make sure you're familiar with for the quiz. Okay. But I'm showing you both notations so that you're familiar with those. Let's see. One other thing here in this section, it's kind of like, it's not really, I guess it's like matching. I was going to say multiple choice. It's like more like matching. They give us a graph for 44 through 47. And basically, somewhere like this. So K is at -6, 1. I'm gonna write this up here. J is at -3, 2. G is at -5, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, -5, 4. And H is at -2, 5. So what they've done is they say the vertices of the image of GHJK after a translation are given. Choose the vector that describes the translation. So A is the vector 1, -3. B is the vector 0, 1. C is -1, -3. And then D is 6, -1. And so then what they do is they give you image points. So like with 44, they tell us that G prime is -6, 1. H prime is -3, 2. J prime is -4, -1. And then K prime is -7, -2. So probably what I would recommend that you do is that you plot at least one or two of these points. You don't really have to do all of them. I just forgot to write this one. You don't really have to write all of them, but I'm trying to see how to get from like the point that I was at on the graph to the image point. So if I was looking at G prime, it's -6, 1. So I would put that on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and +1. So it's right here. So then I would look at, okay, how do I get from this value here to this value here? So how does that happen?
It'd be A, so it goes, it would be ABC.
It's not what I asked. I said, how do I get from here to here?
You go back 1 and down 3.
Left 1, down 3. So that means that that vector has to be -1, -3. So that means that the answer would have to be C. Now, I would recommend to make sure that you plotted it correctly, that maybe you check one more. Maybe do like J, which is -4, -1. So that would be your J prime there. So to get from here to here, left 1, down 1, 2, 3. And so again, that makes sense. So -1, -3. So you can also just look at the points. Since we've wrote down what all these points were, you can just find the difference in them and you can do them that way as well. But so now you've used C, so that means as you're going through and doing yours, you shouldn't get C as the answer again. Any questions about any of that? I know this is like very different, but hopefully you don't think it's too complicated.
I'm still confused for that problem. Is it like, where are you trying to go, and how do you get to that point?
What do you
Like,
mean?
When you say you have to figure out where G is going to J or G prime is going to J prime, how do you know? Like,
Well, I'm looking at the original graph, and then I'm looking at where the image point is. So this is my pre-image up here in blue, and then what I wrote in green is my image. So I plotted this point -6, 1, so that's what this point is. So I'm figuring out what do I have to do to get from the original image, or sorry, from let me use correct words, from the pre-image to the image. Well, to do that, I go left 1 and then down 1, 2, 3, and so it's like your XY coordinates. So if I was using what's it called? Vector notation, then I would be saying this is x minus 1 and y minus 3 in my like normal coordinate notation.
so for the vectors, like it's left and right is the first digit, and then
Yeah, it's always going to be left and right is first. Yeah, just it's like x comma y. Any other questions? Okay, problems for this section. 17, 19. On ones that like 17 and 19, you don't have to copy those pictures over. But obviously, ones like we just did where you're having to like draw on them, you are going to need to copy those over. You shouldn't be drawing in your book. 25 through 31 odd. 39, 41. And I don't even mind on like 39 and 41 where you're using the same triangle if you use like different colors. If you show like, you know, A, B, and C prime in one color and then do your A, B, and C prime for your other one in a different color, just make sure you specify which one's which. But that way you don't have to copy it over twice. And then 45 through 47.
Like all of them.
At some point this week, I did find my tessellation, so we will do the part C of the project. I'm still not sure if I want to do the second part of it, but I will show it to you, and then it'll be due like in a couple weeks. Like you'll have time to do it. So, anyways, but I'll show you what that like looks like at some point, most likely this week. And like I said, you can use graph paper if you want. It's optional. It's not required, so it's up to you.